Ta-da!
All right. So SIPs. SIPs are structural insulated panels. They are made manufacturally from foam insulation sandwiched between two ridge boards that are adhered together with structural adhesive lamination. The insulation is usually expanded polystyrene, but it can be made with polyurethane or hay bales. The polyurethane is going to be a little have a little more R value. It's going to be a little more expensive. The hay bales are going to be a greener option. It's going to be a little more eco-friendly, but the EPS is going to be the most popular option. The rigid boards are usually OSB. It can also be plywood or metal or cement or fiberglass. The OSB is going to be the most popular option. I read somewhere that the plywood is already sized, so it's easier to get different sizes out of the OSB. So that's just a more popular option. This is the thickness of the boards and the R values for each panel. These are kind of the different sizes that you can get, the different thicknesses that you can get to make your house. You can do walls or the roof or the floors. Just depending which one you get, you can get thicker panels. The history. So in 1935, the Forest Products Laboratory started to come up with these panels for houses because the U.S. Forest Service wanted to find better ways to conserve forest resources. They built test houses in Madison, Wisconsin, and monitored them over 30 years, experimenting with different materials and designs. In the 1930s, Frank Lloyd Wright was also kind of experimenting with types of panels. They weren't insulated though, they were just 3 plywood panels with tar paper in between. So they didn't necessarily work that well, and they didn't really pick up, basically. In 1952, Alden B. Dow was a student of Frank Lloyd Wright, and he actually came up with the first insulated, the rigid board or the foam board insulated panels. He built 3 houses in Midland, Michigan, and they're still there today, evidently. So in the 1990s, CAD became more popular, and computer aided manufacturing technology became more popular also. So the process of making the panels became a little more streamlined, and it became easier for people to get these. And now more and more people are starting to use these because when you build out of these panels, you get more air tightness. You have more insulation, and the building process is like a little quicker and you need less help. Yeah, so between the stick building frames and the SIP build, you don't need as much lumber for the SIP builds. It's faster construction, it's stronger, and well, it is lightweight mostly. There's less waste, and the air tightness of your building is going to be better. So first you have to design your house, and then you order the SIPs from the manufacturer. You got to prepare for the install, and then make sure you're ready for the delivery, and then you can install. So during the design part of the SIPs, you definitely want to work with an architect, an engineer, and the SIP manufacturer to make sure your dimensions are all working together. Using the SIPs eliminates a lot of waste, especially if you work in the right increments with the manufacturer. You want to make sure you have all the doors and windows planned out. Obviously, you want to do this with any house you build, but this way the manufacturer can get it right, and when it comes, it'll all be in place for you to put together. You can get electric through, and all the places where electric will come through the walls, and like the HVAC and the plumbing, you want to make sure all those things are already in place so that when they make the panels, they can make the chases for all of those. And you want correct measurements for everything. It's hard to change the boards. It's not necessarily hard to change the boards, but you could, if you're on site and you find that one of the measurements is maybe off, it might ruin the air tightness of your building. So then when you're ordering from the manufacturer, you want to send them all your drawings, and then the manufacturer will come up with a shop drawing. They will make all your panels to all the measurements that you have come up with. They will label every board, so when you get it, you'll know where it goes, and you'll have a drawing of all the panels and where they go. And that's like really helpful, I guess. So then before the SIPs are delivered, you want to make sure that your foundation is very level. The SIP panels are made, they're supposed to be made like perfectly. So if your foundation is off even by a little bit, it could kind of ruin the way your house is sitting, and then the SIP boards won't go together like they're supposed to. You're gonna make sure you have sill plates and a SIP shoe. You want to make sure that you set the SIP shoe up, which is what the panels sit on when you place them. You're gonna make sure it's a 1/2 inch so that the SIP plate can slip through into the onto the shoe and still have room for that interior OSB board. Before delivery, so they're delivered on these trucks, on trailers, and they're big piles basically of your panels. So you want to make sure to have a forklift and space for the trailer. You want to make sure you have enough space for your SIP panels. They are kind of big and bulky. I actually was watching videos of people putting up their SIP panels, and they said it was a good idea to have enough space to be able to sort them out, because they don't necessarily come in the order that you need them to come in. So if you put like each wall in each place, that's really helpful. So then, so then the installation, you want to go over the drawing before you do anything. You want to make sure you know where all of your pieces are. You'll only need 4 to 5 crew members. And honestly, the videos that I was watching were home builders themselves, and it was just the 2 of them sometimes. Not necessarily going to be faster if there's only 2 of you, but I thought that was pretty cool. Make sure that you have all the tools you need. So they, I think the manufacturers send you foam for sealing, and there's like SIP tape that you do for sealing the seams. There's SIP screws that are very long screws for these SIP boards. There is a hot gun, which if you need to take away some of the insulation at the ends, you can use that. You want to make sure that you have all the splines, which are the things that hook the panels together, basically. And then you can install everything. These are the different types of splines. There's one that's like just a little SIP panel, basically, that slips in between them. There's a little OSB piece that just slides right down between them. And then you can use like a 2x4, 2x6, or like whatever your width is. The finishing on the SIPs. So there are no studs in these walls. So it's a little, you don't necessarily have to find a stud to put something in. I was kind of looking at different websites to see how people were doing stuff. Some people said that you could just put your cabinets into the OSB and it wasn't a big deal. Some people said that they put an extra board up to nail your cabinets in. The fastening schedule, I guess, is something that you should definitely look into for the with the manufacturers. Yeah, and then the outside, it said that basically you can use any type of siding, anything that you use on a regular house. You just have to make sure that you're following the manufacturer's directions, I guess. So, cost of SIPs. The initial price is going to be a little higher, although I've kind of found that it's not necessarily a higher price to build with SIPs at this point. You save on labor, you save on waste, materials, and then in the end, your house is going to be airtight, so you're going to save a lot on energy. It's a way more energy efficient building. Some of the cons. Moisture's a big issue with SIP panels. So you want to make sure that you're using the correct wrap on your building. Pests are a big deal. Obviously, like in any sort of wood, pests are going to be an issue, but because of the insulated foam in the middle, they can burrow into that and create like a home in your SIP panel, which you definitely don't want. The ventilation, you want to make sure that you have the right HVAC system, because you're going to need mechanical ventilation because of the air tightness of the house. When you're working on your house, it is hard to change. You can't just go and cut a board and be done with it. You have to make sure that you're not changing the air tightness of your building. So it's kind of hard to change the panels once they're at your property and you're putting them up. There's definitely less people that work with SIPs, so finding somebody who has the expertise is a little trickier with SIP panels, but I think it's actually getting a little better these days. I know there are a few places in Asheville that actually work with SIP panels. The pros of SIPs. It's definitely more energy efficient. You are taking away a lot of the thermal bridges that come with like the framing of walls. The structural stability is much better. There's minimal waste because everything's made in the factory, so you're definitely wasting less. These go up pretty fast once you know how to do it. Once you go, I think with 4 or 5 people, you can get a project done in like 5 days. There's less construction errors because everything's made in the factory. Everything is already placed where it's supposed to be. And the estimate of the cost, because a lot of it is done in the factory. So it's all computerized basically, and you have a better idea of how much it's going to cost. Would I use SIPs? I would definitely use SIPs. I think it's an awesome new way to build houses. I don't really know how to build houses yet, but I would definitely build with SIPs, I think. These are some of the local places in town that use these panels. And then these are my references.
Very good. So go back to where it shows the wall section, right there, number 16. So in this particular instance, they're setting the wall on the foundation, and then the floor is actually being put beside of it on the foundation. Whereas, you know, in general construction, we put the wall on top of the floor joists. Is that a common practice?
That is a great question. The videos that I watched actually had the drywall, or they had left a space for the drywall to come all the way down. And they actually did do it like this. They put their SIP walls on the shoe over their like foundation things. I'm not positive if this is like the way that they usually do it. I guess I should.
Question, with this type of design, which I'm all for, but as an engineer, and this is prefab, which is, I think everything's going that way eventually. What about electrical and plumbing considerations? If you don't design conduit in there, everything's got to be external on the inside of the wall or like in the flooring for the plumbing. So how's that accommodated?
So the manufacturer, if you do all your drawings and you do all your electrical and stuff, you can plan all that out, and they will have spots in the panels that are already like lines that you can already put electrical and plumbing all the way through. It is harder to do if you don't like changing where electrical is in your house once you've already built all this. I think is pretty hard to do without ruining the panels. But the manufacturer does all that for you.
Including like plumbing, if you want to keep it in the wall as opposed to coming up through the floor, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is how my house is built, and like everything is subfloor and then comes up through the SIP. So it involves a lot of insulation around pipes and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Brian, does your wall set directly on the foundation like this picture?
Well, it sits on the subfloor, and then the foundation is underneath. And it's
Okay, so
not,
you're saying that the floor joist set on the foundation, and then the SIP set on top of the floor like conventional construction?
yeah, it does.
Okay. Cool.
The advantage here on the running the outside wall all the way down to the sill plate is your continuous insulation layer. And, you know, ideally what you're getting out of a SIPS panel is continuous insulation. And if you run it all the way down to the sill plate, you don't have to worry about your air sealing and insulating in your band joist area, which can often be much more difficult and creates a lot of thermal bridging. So this seems like a great way to eliminate that thermal bridging in your band area.
I agree. You know, by most of the time that subfloor goes all the way to the outside. And then that is a huge bridge for movement of heat right there for sure. And you know, in not so much now, but you know, 5-10 years ago, a lot of contractors didn't really insulate very good along that header band. And that was always an issue there. Alex, you said something about moisture being a con on that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I know that when they tell you when they send you the SIP panels, they want you to make sure that you cover them. You know, the OSB is I think that when that gets wet, it has a tendency to mold and get inside the house too. Other than, I mean,
Well, wouldn't you have a moisture problem since you're fully encapsulating the house with insulation that's you know, semi-waterproof or at least water resistant. I mean, you're making a complete total barrier there. So you said that you did say that outside air is going to be required. So we're going to have to put some sort of recovery ventilator in there to get air into that. So since we're, you know, basically we've got a balloon that's, you know, that's a waterproof balloon there, we're going to have to ventilate that air inside to get the moisture out, correct?
yeah, they said that you're definitely going to want mechanical ventilation, and some of it was talking about heat recovery too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go to your picture that showed the outside of that had the house wrap on it.
May I interject a quick question?
Sure.
I apologize if you said this and I just missed it, but did you say any R values for this type of panel?
Yeah, I have this.
I was taking notes, so I probably missed it.
This is, so the XPS is extruded polystyrene, but the EPS is going to be the most common, and these are the R values for each thickness of panel.
Wow, that's pretty good.
What's the most common thickness of panel? 4.5 and 6.5.
Yeah, probably. And then for the roof, it's going to be a little more, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And they need cranes, and the boards are relatively light, but obviously when you're lifting those big, huge panels for your roofs, you need to have like a crane.
Is there a specific length? Is there a maximum length on those?
I think they said the biggest one is 8 by 24.
That's pretty good size.
Yeah. Okay, so this one.
Yeah, my
Okay.
walls are 6.5. My top is just a little over 10 inches.
You say your roof is 10 inches?
Yeah, 10 and a quarter, 10 and a half, I think.
Cool.
When she was showing the wall initially, I'm just worried that, you know, installing cabinets and other stuff, I guess that's 1/2-inch particle board or?
Yeah. I was trying to find a good answer for that question, and I didn't find, honestly. There was somebody who said they didn't do anything extra, that they just put their cabinets up on that OSB. There was somebody who has said they put an extra like
Sheet.
Yeah, an extra sheet on their kitchen walls.
I wouldn't trust a 1/2-inch. Well, cabinets are heavy as hell.
Yeah, they were talking about like anchors in the walls
Hollow
too.
anchors.
Yeah, hollow anchors.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know it's not cost effective, but when this house was built, they used plywood instead of OSB, and it's held up so well. And this house is almost 40 years old.
Wow. So Brian, you don't have any kind of extra blocking in there for your cabinets?
Nope, they just hang on the plywood.
Mm. The cabinets not necessarily get so heavy, but man, when you slam them full of, canned jellies and pickles,
Yeah,
all
hundreds of
this-
pounds.
I have seen, even on a conventional house, I have seen cabinets come off the wall.
Oh, God.
I mean, obviously they were hung on studs.
Well,
Uh-huh.
not on this particular one. It wasn't. They missed the stud every time. I don't know.
That was a redneck install there.
Exactly.
Billy Bob.
Okay, so in this house right here in this picture, you've got house wrap on there. Do you know if you can get this in a SIP system? I mean, a zip system, not a SIP system, a zip.
Oh, a zip. Okay.
Zip, S-I-Z-I-P.
I personally do not know that answer, honestly.
Okay.
Eric, I had some long conversations with Huber about this when they were looking into doing exactly what you're talking about. And they were very close-lipped about their options on that. They're keeping it close to the chest. I expect that they're going to come out with a zip SIP product.
It's kind of hard to say, isn't it?
Right. But they've been looking at that for over 10 years now and haven't put something on the market. So, I'm not sure why they're holding back on that, but that's a conversation that Huber has had going now for a long time.
One thing that kind of concerns me a little bit is, when you're talking about the zip system, it's semi-waterproof. And then, we're putting it on top of a SIP system, which has, extruded and expanded polystyrene in it. So is this not like a double vapor barrier? That was what I was getting at.
I think that might be part of their concern also. The zip system itself has a pretty high transmission of moisture. Its perm rating is pretty good, even though it's a really good drainage membrane for bulk water.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime you've got multiple surfaces that could potentially create a moisture issue, that I'm sure that's part of what they're looking at.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring too. Nice. So Brian, just out of curiosity, what's your heating bill usually
About $90 a month.
in the wintertime?
Yeah. Well, I also prefer it a little colder.
Yeah. And how big is your house?
I think around 1,800 square feet, my last inspection.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
Also-
How old is your house, if you don't mind me asking?
Let's see. 45, about 40 years old.
And they were using plywood.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mine's about 40 years old too.
Yeah. I also
Covey,
wanna-
is yours a SIP panel too, Covey?
No, it's a condo. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Got
Yeah.
old 80s oak cabinets in the kitchen though.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, like the time that I was doing code inspection in San Antonio, there was a time lapse on how long you had to Tyvek wrap your house and actually get the finishing coat on, because the moisture barrier thing was a problem. Because in that area you're below sea level and it's easy to build up moisture between like the different layers of the house.
Cool. Any other questions for Alex?